If your brain can change, then you're not permanently wired for limitation. Confidence can be trained, focus can be trained, discipline can be trained, even emotional reactions that you have can be retrained. This is why high performers become intentional about their mental conditioning. Your brain's being rewired every single day, whether you realize it or not. Every single thought you repeat, every emotion you reinforce, every behavior that you practice, it's shaping and wiring your mind. And most people live as if their mindset is totally fixed. And, as if their confidence, discipline, focus, or all of their patterns are permanent. But science tells us something completely different. Your brain is adaptable. And it's something that we're going to talk about today called neuroplasticity. And the thoughts and behaviors that you repeat literally reshape your neural pathways over time. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. And I'm going to show you what you can do differently in order to make a difference with it. My name is George Wright III. I'm your host. Welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. I hope you're having an amazing week. And I'm looking forward to really talking to you about this topic because over the last several weeks, we've been building a foundation. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know we've started with clarity, which is knowing where you want to go. Then we went to focus, which is directing your attention towards what matters. We talked about discipline, creating consistent, actions regardless of your emotions. And then we talked about identity, which was understanding that your self-image drives your behavior. And then last week, we talked about habits and how repeated actions become automatic patterns and ways that you can navigate all these topics that I've talked about. But we're going to go a little deeper today because habits don't just shape your behavior. They physically shape your brain. And that process is called neuroplasticity. But let's talk a minute about what I believe a lot of people are struggling with. Here's the issue most people never realize. They're being conditioned every single day without intention. The thoughts that they repeat become automatic, and the fears that they reinforce become familiar. And that's why excuses that they rehearse are believable. And over time, those repeated mental patterns create these default pathways in your brain. And that's why most people repeat the same emotional cycles for years. They have stress, they have self-doubt, procrastination, fear of failure, negative thinking. Look, we all deal with that. The brain is going to continually to strengthen whatever it repeats. And so here's the important part for you to think about. Your brain does not just judge whether a pattern is empowering or destructive. It simply reinforces what you consistently think, feel, and do. This means that most people are programming themselves accidentally instead of intentionally, and they're wiring their brains this way. So what is neuroplasticity? Well, let's simplify this. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. Your brain adapts to repeated experience. So the more you repeat, it's like the more the neurons fire together, or they wire together. And so when you repeat that thought or behavior, the stronger or the longer you do that, the stronger the neural pathway is going to become. And the less you use a pathway, the weaker it becomes over time. That's a phrase that you've heard me say in the past. Neurons that fire together, wire together. It's because of that. When you ingrain these patterns, they're going to wire into your brain, literally. And so your repeated thoughts and behaviors strengthen connections in your brain. So your focus does matter. Your repetition matters. Your emotional state matters because your brain is constantly adapting to whatever it consistently is exposed to. And so this is a big game changer when you think about it. Think about how this creates changes in your life. If your brain can change, then you're not permanently wired for limitation. Confidence can be trained, focus can be trained, discipline can be trained, even emotional reactions that you have can be retrained. This is why high performers become intentional about their mental conditioning, because what you repeatedly think about becomes easier to think, and what you repeatedly do becomes easier to do. Momentum works neurologically. Patterns become automatic. And so eventually your conditioning becomes and it starts to begin shaping every area of your life, your relationships, your business, your confidence, your habits, your identity. And so everything in your life can change. So there's three sources of mental programming that you've got to be aware of if you really want to get clear on how to rewire your mind. The first is repetition. You've heard this before. Repetition is the foundation of conditioning. Repeated thoughts become beliefs, repeated beliefs and behaviors become automatic. And that's why consistency is going to matter the most. Even more than intensity, consistency does, because repetition is key. Your brain changes through reinforcement. So besides repetition, you've got emotion. Emotion is what accelerates your conditioning. Experiences tied to strong emotions create deeper neural pathways and patterns. So this is why repetition is important, but emotion is key. That's why fear can become so deeply wired. And that's why when you have a bad experience in your life, that gets wired into your mindset, and it really helps to shape your beliefs. But besides repetition and emotions, environment is also constantly shaping your thinking. The people around you, the conversations you hear, the media that you consume, the routines you follow, all of this is programming your mind. This is why I'm a big fan of not watching TV, why I'm a big fan of surrounding yourself and ingraining yourself with an environment that reinforces your growth, not reinforcing limitation. So once you know these three kind of levers, this is how you rewire your brain. You have to actually use your neuroplasticity intentionally. So you have to, first of all, you got to be aware of it. You cannot change patterns that you do not recognize. So start by paying attention to your thoughts. What do you repeatedly say to yourself? What emotions do you have that keep showing up? Awareness is going to interrupt any kind of conditioning you're doing to yourself. The second step would be to interrupt those patterns. Tony Robbins talks about this. When negative loops appear, stop reinforcing them automatically. Just create a pattern break. Move your body, journal, get up, walk around, pause, breathe, meditate. Because every interruption that you do when you have that pattern, it weakens the old pathway. So pattern interrupt is really key. Besides awareness, pattern interrupt. Then you have to repeat your new patterns consistently. And this is the key. Rewiring does take repetition. It's not so much intensity or, short-term motivation. It's repetition. And so your new beliefs only become believable when reinforced consistently through your thoughts and action. Small repeated actions. And another thing you can do, another step that I think really helps is using visualization, because your brain responds strongly to vivid mental rehearsal. You hear athletes talk about this all the time. Why do elite athletes visualize their performance? This is why. And the brain begins creating familiarity around those experiences when you mentally rehearse them. So when you combine visualization with emotion and certainty, you're strengthening all those pathways that you're trying to create. And the last thing I would kind of mention here is that you've got to align your environment. Surround yourself with things that reinforce what you're trying to do, not distract you. Surround yourself with disciplined people, empowering conversations, intentional routines, positive conditioning. Protect your attention at all costs. Attention is the new commodity, but your attention is even more important because it's going to shape everything that's happening to you. Now, let me point out a few things that I've seen people making mistakes around. First, expecting instant transformation is never going to happen. Your brain changes through repetition, so give yourself a little bit of patience. But when you're committed to the path, it'll happen. Second, use affirmations. Affirmations, a lot of times people have talked badly about, but because words alone don't create belief, but your behavior of using affirmations will help you. And the problem is most people use affirmations without action. And that's never going to help you. So that's a problem that a lot of people have. They think they can have affirmations that'll change, but they won't without the action. And then another mistake people are making is they're staying in environments that constantly reinforce their old patterns. So you may be aware and you might be trying to do the right thing. You might be doing your affirmations, interrupting patterns. But if you surround yourself in an environment that's constantly dragging you back into your old habits, this is never going to help you to reprogram your mind. So here's the shift I want you to make. Your brain is not fixed. It's totally trainable. You're not trapped by your conditioning or your beliefs. You're the one that is shaping your beliefs and your mind. So every thought that you have is reinforcing this. So I want you to really shift your mindset into where you feel proactive and ask yourself these questions. Are you programming your mind intentionally or accidentally? Because whatever you're doing on a day-to-day is making a difference. And so begin to audit your mental thoughts. Just keep a journal, keep a notebook. Figure out what kind of emotions you're experiencing, what kind of thoughts you're having, what you're trying to do is identify negative thought patterns so that you can replace them with intentional thoughts backed by action. And, practice this visualization. Ask yourself the question every day, what am I conditioning into my mind right now? Where do I see myself going? Are my thoughts reinforcing what I want to do and who I want to be? Am I the person? Am I acting as if the person that I'm trying to become? And if you'll do that, I think what you'll find is if you do it consistently, you're going to start to rewire your mind. Because most of us, our mind is working against us. Most of us, our mind is not a tool that we can use for our betterment. It's something that is working against us. It's sort of our worst enemy at times, right? So I hope this conversation, this topic around neuroplasticity is something that brings some awareness to you. If you're struggling, it's never too late to start making the changes and making the shifts. It's going to take a little bit of work. It's going to take a little bit of proactive intention. But I promise you that you can make some changes. I promise you your life can change. And the minute you begin starting to rewire your mind, you will have one of the best weapons, one of the best tools in your tool belt to help you to create that life that you're meant to live. So that's my message for today. I hope you have an amazing day. I'm really looking forward to getting some feedback from you. So if you'll hit me up on the Daily Mastermind on any social channel, I would really appreciate it. Also, you can check the show notes for my email if you would like to send me a message. I would love to get back with you. Let me know what you're winning at. Let me know what you're struggling with. What can we do to bring some topics for you that'll help you? And as you go into the week this week, we're going to be talking a lot of business and lifestyle and things like that. So try to get your mindset and your foundation in place. That's why I do these on Mondays. So have an amazing day. I'll look forward to talking with you soon.